2. In this video we're going to be looking at why my favourite vlogging camera over the last 2 years or so has been the DJI Pocket 2. Now I get a lot of people who subscribe to this channel who are doing so because of my Osmo Pocket or DJI Pocket videos, and you can see some of them listed up here in a playlist. But what you might not realise is that I'm a photographer and I use the DJI Pocket and Pocket 2 to go out and do a number of photography vlogs and various bits and bobs like that, how-tos, inspirational stuff, whatever. Go and take a look at my other material. I typically use the Osmo Pocket for outdoor filming, B-roll, pieces to camera, the whole lot. It's an incredibly versatile tool. And in this video we're going to be looking at why I like it, but specifically as well, what's not quite right with it. Now I want to be clear that this video is not going to be blowing smoke up the jacksie of the Osmo Pocket. They're very good, but like anything, they do have their issues, and they are good for some things and not good for others. So this video I'm going to first look at why I think they are very good and why I use them, but also the things that I don't like about them, the things I won't use them for. Looking forward, we're almost certainly going to see the DJI Pocket 3 and looking at what really we need to see in that as a camera, and certainly the things that would make me go out and spend money on it, because right now the Osmo Pocket 2 does pretty much everything I need with a few things that I can kind of work around. So there are 4 things that I think are the killer features. The first is stabilization. Since the Osmo Pocket 2 came out, we've seen one, perhaps 2 versions of the GoPro Hero action cameras come out with improved stabilization. We've also seen 1, perhaps 2 versions of the Osmo Action, and certainly the most recent has got some very nice stabilization. We've come a long way with stabilization without gimbals. So why does the gimbal actually matter in the vlogging camera? Well, to me it matters because crucially I get smooth movement as well as stabilization, but it's that smooth movement as the head kind of pans around as you twist the body, and it follows in a lovely smooth action. That makes a real difference. Another key thing for me is the form factor of it. It's small enough to go into my pocket, hence its name. I barely notice it's there. It will go into pretty much any bag that I'm carrying and take up next to no room. I mean, it's about the size of 4 of my batteries for the Olympus cameras that I'm using to film this. And we'll get on to why I'm using the Olympus cameras to film this in a little while. But the size is really easy to get along with. I mean, let's face it, it's kind of tiny. You can grip it really easily. It works incredibly well. So well, in fact, that it's been copied by other manufacturers. The form factor is not just down to how it stores and how you handle it. It's all about where you can put it, because I can literally put it virtually anywhere. I mean, it's very small. I can pull it out of crisp packets, for instance. I can do so much with it. Its size is an absolute key factor, not just in storage. If you're enjoying this video so far, please click the like button. It really will help the channel. So let's look at video quality and image quality. We've only got to reach into our pocket and get the phone out to realise just how good tiny sensors can be. And the sensors in the DJI Pocket are incredibly good. The dynamic range is pretty decent, and it produces up to a 240 frames a second recording in 1080p. That's pretty good for slow-mo, and in HD definition as well. In 4K we can get 60 frames a second, and we really can't complain about that either. The final thing that makes it the perfect vlogging camera, for me at least, is its ease of use. And let's face it, it's got 2 buttons on it, or 3 if you look at the Osmo Pocket 2, because you've got the one on the side. And that's about it. The rest of it is on a touch interface on a very, very small screen, but it works. It's very responsive. It is easy to use, and once you've set everything up on the menu system with the touchscreen, the rest of it really can be done just by pressing one of the 2 buttons on the camera itself. So let's look at the things that I don't use it for. Now, it's important to say that these are my opinions. If you have other opinions and opposing opinions, great. Let's have a debate in the comments down below. But for me, I don't think I've ever deliberately taken a photograph with it. And there's a reason for that. It's because virtually every other camera that I have with me, including the phone, is better. Why would I use this little pocket camera, which has virtually no computational AI features in it whatsoever? It's got the tiniest screen on the back of it. I just wouldn't, would I? I'd rather use the 5-inch screen of my smartphone. Something else that I very rarely do with it is actually connect it to my phone, whether it's wireless or with a cable. And certainly, I very, very rarely, if ever, connect it directly to the phone by plugging it onto the side. That to me was always an absolute abomination of a piece of design. Perhaps a nice idea, but really, it's a pocket camera, and all of a sudden you've made it larger than the other thing you keep in your pocket. And yeah, they just kind of hold together with a USB-C connector. That's a certain kind of madness and a recipe for disaster. Yes, you can buy brackets that hold them together a bit more securely, but really? If you've got to modularize the product in this way, I don't quite see the point. Where I have connected it to my phone in the past, what I've intended to use it for is to get the camera into spaces where I can't see the screen. So perhaps it's on a long pole, or I'm pushing it through an aperture, maybe a fence or some branches of a tree or something like that. One of my biggest gripes is this. I do not any longer use the Osmo Pocket to record audio. I am so sick of the little 3.5mm audio adapter on these things. Early on I bought one of these and I used it with the Boya BY M1 lav mic, which is what I'm wearing here. Yeah, I've got to say I was quite impressed. Certainly the quality of audio was much improved over what I was getting straight out of the camera. But as I progressed, I wanted more and more. And the more I used this audio adapter out in the wild, the more I found that the adapter was less than reliable, shall we say. It just sticks out of the bottom of the camera. That makes it vulnerable. It makes it vulnerable to being knocked. It makes it vulnerable for it to be pulled out. In actual fact, I lost one in the long grass down by the river. Had to buy another. Now, I need to stress that these things are damned expensive. They're about £30. And I consider that to be £30 for a product that really should have been built into the camera in the first place. But as it's an add-on and it sticks out and it's vulnerable, increasingly I found it's unreliable. I also find that the camera doesn't always show up the little mic connected icon on the screen as well. So you're left wondering, am I actually recording audio or not? Because of course, if it isn't recording audio, it probably hasn't switched into the onboard audio in the camera either. And you're left in this kind of state of limbo, not knowing whether or not it's doing its job properly. And that for me, as somebody who needs to go out and do as few takes as possible, is really, really important. So I simply don't use it any longer. It's just not worth the hassle. These days I record into a Zoom H1 pocket recorder. I'll use this Boya mic, or I'll use a Rode Wireless Go mic so that I'm not tethered with a cable. It makes quite a difference. Yes, it adds quite a lot of extra work, shall we say, in post-production, but that's a sacrifice that I'm happy to make because I know I should have the audio. I will stress, of course, that if you've been watching some of the other videos, I do still have problems with audio, but the problems are very much more my problems, i.e. human error, than they are anything to do with the technology itself failing. Something else that I don't use the Pocket series of cameras for, and that's recording outdoors if it's wet. They're not weather sealed, so I daren't take them out in a shower or anything like that because I simply do not want water getting into the gimbal motors and things like that, and it just isn't worth it. And something else I mentioned earlier is that I don't use it for indoor recording. I'm using my Olympus for this. I'm doing that because it is the best camera I have available to me at this moment for the job in hand. It's got a huge sensor on it by comparison to the Osmo Pocket. It detects light so much better. It works better in indoor environments where there isn't as much light. So all I'm really doing is using the best camera for the job. It's not to say that I can't use the Pocket for various things. It's capable, it's just not as capable as other equipment that I have. And indeed, it's not as capable as other equipment that you very likely have, because let's face it, your phone's going to be better indoors. So let's look at things I really don't like about it. One of the things I really don't like about it is the magnetic filters. Now I have two sets of DJI magnetic ND filters. I have two because one failed. When I say failed, it literally dropped off into some long grass somewhere. Here's a quick clip of it happening. Sadly, DJI didn't honour a replacement for it, but thankfully Wex Photographic did. A big thumbs up to Wex Photographic. I must point out, we're not sponsored by them. But if you're watching Wex, the magnetic filters are a bit finicky. They are finicky to handle. They're a bit finicky to put on. They're even more finicky to take off, yet, as I know to my cost, can fall off without warning. Another thing that I really don't like about it is the terrible, terrible tripod mount. It's a little clip-on device that sits at the bottom of the whole camera body, and it has a tendency to drop off. But that's the wrong way of putting it, because of course the tripod mount doesn't drop off. The camera does, because the tripod mount is mounted to a tripod. It's physically screwed on. It's the camera that falls to the ground and smashes. And it doesn't take much for that to happen. So I could never endorse actually using it. Having said that, I do use it. I use it because I'm micro lazy and can't be bothered fitting the little clamp that I have for it sometimes, because the clamp has its own little problems, but is far, far, far more secure than the little clip-on tripod base thing, which is truly awful. Let's look at one of the features of the camera that I really don't like much. It's one of its main selling points. It's the tracking. Now, I've done videos of tracking showing people how it works, and I've tended to do that in controlled environment, shall we say, in the studio, where what we're tracking is an object and I simply move it around and the camera follows it. Doing it out in the wild is a different matter altogether, and there are differences between the Pocket 1 and the Pocket 2 in tracking. You would think that the Pocket 2 should be better, and in my opinion it isn't. There are a number of differences that actually make it significantly worse. For me as a photographic vlogger, I tend to do this work on my own. I'll set the tripod up, I'll put the camera on the tripod, and if it's in selfie mode, it will go straight into a kind of face track, or you can turn that off in the menus, and I have, because it's bloody awful. I need to clarify what bloody awful means here. It will track your face. The difficulty, of course, being a vlogger who's trying to track oneself, is that you can't. Because if, for instance, the camera is where this camera is at the minute, which is about 4 foot away from me, in order to get it to track me, I have to go up to the camera, double tap on my face on the tiny screen, and then walk away. But the problem is it's tracking my face. So I can't walk away, I have to back away, still facing the camera. Got me so far? Then you might say, well, connect it to your phone then. Okay, so I've connected my phone. My phone's here. I double tap on my face, but my face is down here, looking at that, because I have to look at that in order to double tap on it, because I can't do anything else. I have to look at what I'm doing. That poses another problem, because I can't hold my phone up all the time, make sure it's there, so I put my phone away and I've got to slide it into a pocket or something and then consider the phone from there or whatever. The problem still being that it's trying to track my face. It's looking for the nose and the eyes and that shape arrangement. What if I do that? All of a sudden that shape's gone. What if I have to walk that way? I can't just back away again because that looks weird.
Well, weird as it might have looked, backing away from the camera is what you're about to see me do. I've set this off on the beach at Cromer on a video that you will see in a week or so, and I thought, well, I'll just give it another go because I stressed it does not normally work. There, here we are. Look, backing away. Apologies for sounding stuffy. I've got a head cold, but there we go. Back away, back away. Told you, looks weird, and oh, now it's still got me. Look. There we are, it's tracking, and I've turned my back on it. I've got to stress, it doesn't normally work, and it's still got me. And look, it's tracking me back. I'm dumbfounded. Ordinarily, I wouldn't even attempt this because previous tests have failed. Anyway, back to the video.
And one of the other things I really do not like with the second version of the camera, and it didn't do this on the first, is that whatever it's tracking, it wants dead centre in the frame. You can't tell it, no, I want it over to one side. It won't let you. We're expecting the third model of the DJI Pocket camera to appear sometime during 2022. What would make me go out and buy that without question? What killer features does that really need to have to make it a worthy successor to the Pocket 2? Well, for me, I've got to say that the modularity idea it's a bit of a fad. I think it's more to do with getting more money for DJI than it is to do with being genuinely useful. I mean, let's face it, the Pocket 2 is sold as the camera on its own or with the combo kit. The combo kit I've discussed in another video, which you can see up here. But principally, owning the Pocket 1 and getting various little accessories for it, I felt the combo kit was of no use to me whatsoever because I already had the features in other accessories from the first version of it. Really, what DJI did with the second version didn't really, it did give it some killer features, but it gave it killer features in things that you had to, again, bolt onto it. So you had this wireless mic, which is very nice. And within this do-it-all handle, you've got a Wi-Fi connection ability and also Bluetooth, and you can connect a 3.5mm jack for a mic on it, and these things are indeed very useful. But wouldn't it have been so much better if all of those things were put into the camera in the first place? Because let's face it, they can. They've proven initially that in order to achieve that you need to have a longer body on it, because the do-it-all handle snaps onto the main body of the camera and elongates it. Well, heck, if you've got to carry that other part anyway, why not just include it in the camera in the first place? Or at the very least, make that additional space have a larger battery in it so you can increase the runtime of the camera. All of these things were kind of missing. I'd much rather see the modularity idea kicked into touch and simply include the features within the main body, because everyone needs an external mic. And don't pretend that you don't, because you're kidding yourself. But aside from building the stuff into the camera that really should have been built into it in the first place, what do we really need to see to make this a worthy upgrade? I think we're getting close to peak camera. We may have already hit peak camera. Many smartphones don't include bigger sensors any longer. They just have better computational photography and videography built into them, and that's where a lot of camera tech is going, and I think it's where the Pocket series needs to go. We already have a 3-axis stabilization. The killer feature, the absolute killer feature, would be 4th-axis stabilization. Now, we know that this is possible digitally in the action cams. They're incredibly good at it. So why can we not stabilize that in camera on the 4th axis, so we no longer have that bounce as we walk. That would make one heck of a difference. Of course, DJI does need to fix the tracking and improve on that. It would be very nice to see some AI features built into the tracking, so perhaps it tracks eyes, perhaps it tracks and identifies other objects such as cars and things like that. It would certainly be that next step on from the Pocket 2. But as I said already, I think we've probably just about reached peak camera. Even in the top digital market of mirrorless cameras and the like now, and everyone's going to mirrorless cameras, even Canon has said that they won't produce DSLRs any further. I think over in that sector we're still looking at kind of reaching peak camera. We're getting new sensors developed all the time. I mean, Sony produced most of them, let's face it, and they're getting better. But so is the AI behind the cameras, and so many more cameras, and indeed the phones have got more and more AI built into them, and it's got to be the way that we're going. And something else that we really do need to consider in all of this is the way that we consume this content that's being created. Now, I'm recording this in 4K, but I'll upload it to YouTube in 1080p HD. And the reason there's that imbalance is it gives me the ability to do quite a lot of pushing and pull-outs in post without loss of image quality. And we can't ignore the fact that the vast majority of the time we are consuming the videos that are on YouTube and in many places on Netflix and lots of things on tiny screens. We're looking at them on phones, on watches, on tablets, on laptops and things like that. We don't need 4K. Not everybody has 4K screens. A lot of people have 4K televisions, but I don't know, certainly when I look at my metrics, the vast majority of people that are viewing my content are doing so on a PC or on a phone. What's the point in putting 4K onto a 5-inch screen? It just isn't. We are conditioned to wanting more, but not better quality. We have begun to sacrifice quality for quantity, and in many ways that's a retrograde step. Will that stop someone producing the next generation of mega sensor with massive dynamic range? Of course it won't. And the fact that we're still watching it on a mobile phone or a watch won't stop us buying it either. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click the like button. As ever, it's really important to the channel that you do. If you'd like to share the video, hit the share button, throw it all over your social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. There's lots of ideas on using the Osmo Pocket range, and if you're interested in my photography as well, just click on my name down in the corner down there, and you'll go to the channel and you can see the rest of my content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.